All right, what's up, guys? I am here with Mike Napoleon from SuperSpeed Golf, and we're having a little kind of a fireside chat.
Sure, gym side chat.
Gym side chat. Yeah, we just did some filming upstairs in the hitting bay and walked through some drills and everything, which we'll be putting that content out. And I just wanted to chat with you a little bit more about SuperSpeed, where it came from, kind of the background of it all, and then maybe a little history on just the different locations that you have. Because
Sure.
we're here at Royal Melbourne Country Club here in Chicago, but I know you guys have a couple of other spots. And
so I
slow down.
Jeff, I would say the big thing is SuperSpeed came out of a, kind of that deep-rooted belief that we have as coaches that we think that everyone can get better. Everybody's capable of improving their performance with golf and therefore improving their enjoyment, playing longer, and having more fun with the game. And from SuperSpeed specifically, we actually found a whole category of training that really barely been done at all in the golf industry.
Yeah.
And I think that was what was really fun when we saw that. And we definitely have a lot to owe to our friends at TPI for a lot of that. And the first time we ever talked about or heard about overspeed training was with Tom House.
Yep.
At the World Golf Fitness Summit, I believe, in 2010. So this is going back a ways.
Yeah.
Very first time that he talked about a lot of the things he'd been doing in baseball for many years with pitchers like Nolan Ryan and Roger Clemens and basically everybody else in between that you can imagine that was playing at that level, on how to use different weights to make the body move faster. And I think the common term for that type of training that had been out there in the world for a long time was called overload underload training, right? And now we call ours overspeed training, and we get that question sometimes. We'll talk about that because I think we've taken some of the principles and we use them a little differently. And from a golf standpoint, I think we get better results because of it. But the whole concept of the overload underload training is basically messing around with the body's normal response speed to a motor pattern. So that's whether you're throwing a javelin or you're throwing a baseball or you're hitting a baseball or you're hitting a golf club. In our brain, there's a very complex, similar to a computer program, that we use to run that process, and we call those motor programs. So when you have a motor program, I think this is such a cool thing. It has a normal speed that it's going to respond. And we see this all the time. Like you see a player take a stock golf swing, and it's almost the same speed all the time when they do it. Now, there's skills that you need in many sports like golf to be able to change that a little bit, and it's very possible. But from just a raw stock response speed, it's pretty much the same. So we started to figure out that you can change that and you can increase it, and it ends up with a lot of different effects for the player that help a lot of their mechanics as well, but primarily it just helps make that response speed faster. So we saw this, after seeing that at the golf summit and seeing some of those results, and started working with a few clients with some very, I would say at that point, just rudimentary systems with this, where we were trying out shafts and we were using like the player's own driver and maybe an iron that was heavier and testing some of those and seeing some results. And then we just really optimized that with the SuperSpeed system to make it work even better.
How are you testing that? Just with radar monitors or swing speed monitors?
Yeah, so we've done all of our in-house research that we've done with SuperSpeed on TrackMan, and then also coupled with some just basic swing radar devices when we started to actually test how fast the individual clubs were going. It's a lot harder to measure that on a lot of launch monitors today because you don't hit a golf ball.
Yeah.
If you notice, like just about every launch monitor on the market, this is a hint for somebody out there that owns a launch monitor company. We'd love another little launch monitor that you can measure just swing speed. But anyway, so TrackMan is our primary thing that we use at all of our academies and locations for Catalyst Golf Performance, where we develop SuperSpeed. So what we would do is we would have a lot of our clients come through. We had an initial test subject. We had an initial test phase that we did with about 100 clients, I think 98 clients or so that had come through and done a very basic test, which was, we're going to hit some drivers on TrackMan. We're going to measure how fast your club speed is. And then we're going to go through our introductory protocol that we had built at that time, and it developed a little bit over time, but our introductory protocol for SuperSpeed Golf, and then we're going to test your driver speed again. We're going to see what we get, and we just saw huge results. I mean, we average across that pool, and that had professional players, that had seniors, women, ladies, juniors, everybody in between. So it had a full
and that
gamut.
was just one first time come in.
This was just one first time. This was the first test we did. We saw an average of 5% increase in club speed, in a matter of 8 minutes when they did that drill. We also measured how many people's jaws went to the floor after seeing that, and it was almost 100% of them. So
sure.
I mean, that was a pretty
I've seen that firsthand.
Yeah, so that was a pretty big thing when we saw that we just said, well, we might have something here that could be like you said, a new category of training that every golfer can implement into their program and get major results out of. Yeah. And then further testing, and we can talk about all that too. But that was the initial light bulb that went off on SuperSpeed. Is there's a concept here that isn't fully applied yet to golf, that we have the capabilities with all the technology and experts that we have on our team to be able to optimize it for golf. And we just kind of took those steps, and SuperSpeed Golf was born.
So why is it the design that you have? Why not have different weighted driver heads?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. There was a great study.
Yeah, I can show people what it looks like.
We got our green club here. There you go.
So you can see the head of the club there. And so yeah, I mean, I would imagine the first thought was, let's just make different weighted drivers.
It actually wasn't. No. Okay, so it wasn't that we were going to make different drivers right off the bat, and there's a good reason for that actually. So, and this is just a principle that we've always tried to adhere to from a coaching standpoint, and that's when you're really trying to make the biggest change. Okay, the biggest changes are possible when you take the player out of the skill element of their sport. Okay? It's always easier, and golfers know this and have seen this. Essentially, it's always easier to change something in a practice swing than it is when you're hitting a ball, right? Sure. So the first step then in making a big change is taking that skill element away. Okay? So when we're looking at something as specific as just training speed and power, we're not looking at training mechanics. We're not looking at form. We're not looking at those things. We have to take that skill element out, and I think that's a very big key.
That's a big distinction.
The actual first design, though, it's funny you talk about that, was actually, so here's our SuperSpeed club with the head, and this one's our green club, or our lightest weight club. But, see, it's pretty simple. It's a golf shaft and a grip, and why don't you do that again?
That's it.
It's all good, Marty. We'll just take it.
Yeah, just start with this is our green.
Yeah.
This guy's talking about how fast their swing speeds are now.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Jeff, so it's kind of interesting you ask about our initial design. So, I've got our green club here, and this was not our initial design for the SuperSpeed Golf training system, but you can see what we came up with was just a weight head shaft, and then a grip on the other end. So pretty simple. Our initial design was actually far more complicated than this.
Really?
It actually involved a weight tip that looked similar to this, that had 3 different interchangeable pieces that you could pop on and off. Okay, so they kind of had threaded pieces on there that you could screw on, and we tried it, and honestly, like so many other things in life, we just found that simple was better.
Yeah.
And the biggest part of it was practical in the training. So we had people start to try to use that prototype, and what ended up happening is either they couldn't get the thing off fast enough, or in between the sets, we had too much time in between the training protocols, and so they're messing with this thing, and then we were worried that they wouldn't quite get it tight enough, or they were, it would wear out over time. So it was one of those that was a very elegant solution to the problem of changing the weight of the club, but at the same time, we don't think was as practical for the actual use. And then we also liked the fact that we wanted to color code it. So many things become easier, believe it or not, even for adults out there, if they're just simple and color coded. It's so hard on a large scale to make sure that people are using the system correctly. So making it as simple and user friendly as we can was a big piece.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I love about it, because I can just tell people, okay, green, blue, red, and send them off on their own. They can do their thing before we get into any kind of a training session or anything like that. So let's talk about some of the people that are using SuperSpeed, because we've been connected. 18 Strong and SuperSpeed have now kind of been connected for I guess since the first World Golf Fitness Summer. Not quite then. That's when I first met you guys.
Yep.
But since then, it just seems like there are so many people using it, and that's juniors, that's tour players, that's long drive players, that's your everyday average Joe that plays at the country club.
It's a full gamut. And
Yeah.
I'll actually say, like, just this week, my main partner Kyle Shea was down at the CME tournament for the LPGA Tour Championship. We just now topped 125 tour players around the world using the SuperSpeed system actively. So that's pretty exciting for us. And a lot of those players are, asking us to help them with their protocols and programming. And aside from the tour players that we coach ourselves, it's been a lot of fun to get involved with a lot of the programs for many of the best in the world.
Tell us a little bit about some of the long drive guys that you've worked with. Maybe not necessarily their names, but how they've responded to using this, and if they love it, and how they use it.
Long drive is one of those extremely exciting, extremely small portion, I would say, of players in the golf world that are ever capable of doing it. But it's a lot of fun to work with because they're also some of the most explosive athletes on the planet.
Right.
I mean, with overspeed training, I would say that overspeed training, SuperSpeed Golf, this concept, this category, if you're a long drive professional out there and you're not doing this, like, you're behind the curve by a big margin, because you're just leaving swing speed on the table. And in an arena where, I would say that 95% of that game is how fast you can swing the golf club, and then 5% of it is everything else that you need to be able to make sure that you get one ball on the grid out of a set. It's such a huge piece. But we've had huge responses. We've had guys in their mid-40s that have gone from, that were good athletes and good golfers, and could swing the club in the mid-high 120s already, get up to the mid-140s, which,
wow.
The difference between having somebody that goes from like 80 miles an hour to 95 and the difference in an athlete that goes from 125 to 145, it's like one of those exponential curves.
Yeah.
Like, it's that much more difficult. Every mile an hour you're trying to get, after you're at 135 miles an hour. And it's like Michael Phelps trying to shave off another, quarter of a second on a swimming run. It's tough.
It's like a 20 handicap going to a 15 versus a 5 going to scratch.
Exactly.
Way different ball game.
Yeah, way different ball game. So those are examples. We've had guys that barely ever played golf before that have gone top 150 in competition. So there's a lot of pieces there. Now I would say this too. A lot of those programs, like if it's a player that we're coaching ourselves, Catalyst Golf Performance, we're putting a lot of different things around them. Mm-hmm. That's, I wouldn't want to claim that's just overspeed training doing it. That's, swing mechanics coaching. That's all kinds of different work in the gym with our fitness specialists. That's detailed nutrition specialists. That's, to the specification of basically what you're eating at every point in every day of your life up till a competition, to, recovery and different types of treatment after all of your work so that you can get back in the gym and keep working harder. And then overspeed training obviously on top of that. But the comprehensive nature of those type of programs is incredibly important.
Yeah, and I would say that, just my own personal experience, I've seen, guys and girls of several different ages. I've got one client in particular, 72 years old, just had a birthday a couple days ago. Happy birthday, Paul. Who, came in. First time we tested him was swinging 86 miles an hour, and that's him swinging out of his shoes, and then run through the protocol. I think probably this was over a year ago, probably for about a month or two, and he came back in and was comfortably swinging 96 miles an hour. Yeah,
it's a game changer for a player like that too, isn't it?
Yeah, he's out driving all of his buddies. He's winning long drive competitions in his scrambles now. So he was just ecstatic with his progress there. And so to see people at all levels, the professionals, the long drive guys, a guy like Paul, a high school female athlete, because I'm sure you guys have worked with a lot of female golfers, and that's one of the big things with them is generating more speed. So talk a little bit about maybe the high school athlete, and I know you guys have the junior clubs
Sure.
that are coming out too. So that's a kind of a game changer as well.
Yeah, so I mean, your high school players are it's a huge window of opportunity, if you will, for when human beings are going to develop speed is going to be sometime during the time when that kid's in 9th grade and probably 12th grade. Depending on when they hit their growth spurt and when they go, they get a big power window that comes up there. So I think overspeed training is a huge thing to do at that time, because you want to start to really sequence up and get to a point where you can raise what we like to talk about is your athletic potential.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's really the way we would think of that. Like everybody, when they're born, has opportunities to kind of max out their potential athleticism in their body. And there's been a lot of research and development that's been done on this. But essentially, if you hit every one of these little windows and optimize out what you would do from the time of birth through when you're around 20, 21 years old is usually when we kind of finish developing. What we call that is like a maxed out athletic ceiling. All right. Now, most of the time, you don't do that. That's where we would see a long drive player has somehow just either they've done it on purpose or most of it's accidental, or they just played the right sports and did the right things and ended up maxing out that athletic potential to a very, very high level. What we see on top of that, and this is where it becomes really important for high school athletes, is that's actually a time now just in our society where a lot of these kids stop playing a lot of sports.
Yeah.
They get very into either whatever those other activities they might have, but that's generally a time where they miss some of these later developmental speed windows. It's one of the reasons that a lot of people are never really going to be long drive professionals. Now, I think we can expand on that too, because I think it's also really interesting to see what happens to everybody else, because most of the time we don't max out every piece of that athletic ceiling, but once we get to that 2021 range and maybe we're functioning at 95% of what our personal athletic ceiling is going to be, now all of a sudden we get a sprained ankle and it goes down to 90%. And then all of a sudden we get a little back injury. Now we're going to be functioning at 80%. And throughout life, we start to habitually decrease basically our optimization level
Right, that makes sense.
relative to our own athletic ceiling. So I had a talk with Greg Rose at TPI not too long ago about speed training, and they've done a lot of research on the junior development side that all of this fast twitch muscle fiber and basically your athletic speed is going to be learned in early ages when you're growing up.
Right.
So that thought that, and I agree with that. I think it's very true. But again, what I would add to that conversation is that very few people are ever actually functioning from a practical standpoint anywhere near what they're capable of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So let's say you're functioning at 65% of your athletic ceiling, your own personal athletic ceiling, and so what that means is, let's say you're swinging at 80 miles an hour and you're 70 years old functioning there. I mean, you might actually be capable of swinging 110.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, everything that you've done has limited that, has kind of put, we like to call it a governor on the car engine. It's basically limited how fast you can go. So one of the things that overspeed training does is it actually kind of starts to let you get closer back up to wherever your ceiling is.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that we see these big speed gains, even though you're not going to raise the ceiling, max out what you can get, you're going to get way closer to it than you were ever could before.
Yeah, it's almost like it's in there. That potential's in there. You have it. You just haven't tapped in. Maybe you have never tapped into it, or because of those other things. Maybe because of our daily lives. We all have jobs. We all lose posture. We have those kinds of things. And so to be able to then work on your body, work on your game, work on your swing, you can kind of recapture some of that stuff. And I know I like using the term, putting you have a governor on. And I think that's what's so powerful about the clubs is when you swing that green one and you swing it super fast, your brain's like, whoa, that's going faster than I'm used to.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's kind of like, oh, well, that's in there, and so it kind of gives you that feeling of, or that awareness that my body actually can do that. I just haven't been.
Exactly. And it's more than even being a conscious thought that you haven't been. It's literally the neuromuscular connection between your brain and your muscles goes faster. And wow, it actually can. And then it does. That really segues well, though, into some of the secondary research that we did when we were developing the system, and this is going to finally answer that question why we call it overspeed training.
Right.
And we've kind of gone away from that overload underload training. And so here's what we found. We found that we got way better results with players when we maintained a faster level of swinging throughout the training protocol. Okay, so measuring this both on 3D motion capture, also on just our swing radars that measure how fast the clubs go. So the reason we ended up with a 20% light club, okay, is we found that below that weight, okay, so a lot lighter than that, if we got too light, especially if we got down to where like you're using a shaft,
right,
we actually see that the sequencing, the biomechanics pattern of the body is very different. There's not enough load. So, like we were talking about upstairs when we were doing some of those golf drills, there's no need for a lot of that, acceleration, deceleration sequence and the stretch shorten cycles. You don't get the energy transfer when you're just swinging a shaft because your body realizes it's not a golf club and it's way too easy to make it go fast.
Right.
So you end up increasing hand speed, but your body speed actually reduces most of the time.
Gotcha.
Okay. So what we had to do is we had to find that magic area where we actually got the same sequencing pattern as the golf swing. We found that was about 20% light. So that's why we started there. So yeah, we landed on that 20% number, okay? And what we also found was really cool about that 20% number is it's also right around the area where people swing about 20% faster than their normal golf swing. So if you're swinging at 100, you're going to swing that green club, at like 119 average, okay? And then as we go through that training protocol, we're going to create this flash memory, neuromuscular flash memory scenario where your brain to body reaction is going to be significantly faster. So even though now we're going to move to the blue club, which is only 10% lighter than your driver, because we just did those with the green at 119, this one's going to go at like 116 to 117.
So your brain, your body kind of remembers
exactly
the green club, but you're not swinging the heavier club.
Exactly. Remembers what it did before, and now we added load to it. So now we're showing it can do it with load. And then we get to the red club, it's 5% heavier. We still find that player is going to swing that around 112. So we're talking 12% faster with a club that's 5% heavier than your driver. And that's really the magic of what we call overspeed training, is that all those swings you're making through these protocols are over the speed of your normal golf swing.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. So, and that's the reason why, and we've talked about this before, why you stuck with the 5% heavier club instead of going with something that's even heavier than that. We look at baseball and we look at the traditional donut on the bat that guys are swinging and swinging fast, trying to swing fast. But I think you guys have said that you found that when you got too heavy, it kind of slowed everything down.
Yeah. So I mean, it's absolute scientific fact at this point that if you swing something that's significantly heavier without having done anything else before that, it's going to make you slower than you were before. Right. And that's the same way that when we go lighter, it makes you faster. When you go heavier, it makes you slower. It's how it goes. We're actually launching our baseball sets here in January. I'm really excited about it. It's a lot of fun. We've got a great partner here in Chicago. His name's Justin Stone. Runs a company called Elite Baseball Training.com and EliteBaseball.tv. Justin's a fantastic baseball coach, really into biomechanics, really ahead of the world in the baseball side, because they actually, from a research side, really are much more traditional in much of their coaching practices than the golf world. And our first big campaign that we're doing in the baseball world, we're launching at a big conference in January. It's called Death to Donuts. Okay.
Nice.
We actually printed up a whole bunch of T-shirts. We got this little like Ghostbusters style logo with Death to Donuts on it.
That's so good.
So it's killer. It's making some waves in the baseball world already because you get that feel like you make a few swings with a donut on a baseball bat. You pick up your other bat, it feels lighter, but what happens is you actually swing slower, and we don't want that. So we want to make these players swing faster. Our initial research with a lot of baseball clients at Justin's academies, we're actually seeing bigger gains in the baseball side from a baseball swing standpoint than we even did in golf. So we're really pumped about that whole SuperSpeed Slugger is the name of that product.
Okay, is the website up yet?
Website, got a landing page there. We have a landing page. We got some information coming out in the next few weeks. That website will launch probably in a couple weeks here. And then first week in January, we'll be at the ABCA convention in Anaheim, California. Big trade show for baseball coaches around the world. So we're excited for that.
Death to Donuts. That's a great marketing campaign.
Yeah, we're happy with it. It's going to be fun.
All right, my man. Anything else that you can think of that we haven't touched on that we want to close out with here before we wrap things up? Now that the sun's finally maybe shining out there a little bit.
Maybe a little. I don't think we want to go out there anyway. Chicago's not the place you want to be this time of year.
Yeah.
But it's okay. That's why we have these indoor facilities. Yeah, I mean, this was a lot of fun today. I really appreciate you coming down, and I hope you enjoyed going through some of these protocols and working on some things. And you're welcome here anytime you want.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it, and I'm going to be looking forward to putting it into place with some of my clients and myself, and especially the new one that we will unveil very soon. So,
Awesome.
all right,
Thanks a lot, Jeff.
Thank you.